get started before we get too deep into it.
Now the Clay Matthews is not the Clay
No,
Matthews.
no, it's not the
his
not
dad.
the Packer. Yeah.
Okay, let's make sure we got that cleared up.
This is Ben.
And this is Jerry.
You listen to Small Town Stoics.
Well, we got the Hall of Fame announcements coming up soon, next month, I believe. And NFL and baseball, they're kind of there together. So let's go through the balloting and see who we got, because it's kind of the culmination of your athletic career to wind up there. So
yeah.
So let's start with the pro football. I'll read off the entire. Well, this is the 25 guys that made it, and then they're going to whittle it down to 15. So some of the guys we may pick for the Hall of Fame may not make it. So it's not like we're riders. But anyway, so we'll start out with Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Rondé Barber, Cornelius Bennett, Tony Baselli, Leroy Butler, Alan Faneca, Rodney Harrison, Torrey Holt, Calvin Johnson, John Lynch, Payton Manning, Clay Matthews Jr., Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Steve Tasker, Fred Taylor, Zach Thomas, Hines Ward, Reggie Wayne, Patrick Willis, Charles Woodson, Darren Woodson, and Bryant Young. So 6 of those names are likely to wind up in the Hall of Fame. So we can reasonably say that there's some dudes on there that are just slam dunks. Like, there's no fucking question. No doubt that, like, Peyton Manning, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, first ballot.
So for me, let's talk about Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson. Those two going together, I don't care if anybody else on that list go. Those two go together because they've been linked at the hip since college. They were 1-2 in the Heisman.
Yep.
They were 1-4 in the draft, and they went out together.
Mm-hmm.
They played against each other and then out together. So, to me, those two need to go in together. And the riders aren't as romantic about it, but those two.
Yeah.
Of everybody on that list, those two are the locks. Like, there's no even need in voting. Those guys are in.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning, one of the most prolific, probably the most prolific passer of all time, and then Charles Woodson, one of the most feared defenders there was, especially the backfield. And notable to say that the dude also the only defensive player to ever win a Heisman Trophy.
Yep.
So, that's huge. So, those two we could talk about all day long just in accomplishment-wise. So, you want to give me your 6?
So the 6 I marked, I got the 4 first ballot guys. I got Jared Allen, Calvin Johnson, Peyton Manning, and Charles Woodson.
Okay, those are hard not to.
Yeah, just to me I think you just look at those 4 and you're like, yeah, those guys get in. And then
this is where it gets hard.
I did 7 because I had 2 guys that I was kind of torn between picking which one.
Okay.
And so my next one for sure that I think will get in is Hines Ward.
Okay.
I think it's his turn to get in. And then I picked Darren Woodson and Eric Allen.
Wow. See, all right. If you look on this list, there's kind of a logjam of wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
You got Hines Ward, Reggie Wayne, and Torrey Holt, and Calvin Johnson. You can't, and Steve Tasker, but Tasker isn't in class as those guys. Tasker's more of a tight end. But it always feels like when there's a big name receiver going in, there's always like 4 that are stuck because you don't want to have a Hall of Fame class of one position.
Yeah.
So you look at that list and you're like, shit, they're piled in there because Torrey Holt, Reggie Wayne, and Hines Ward all have legitimate arguments, but are they Calvin Johnson?
Mm-hmm.
No, they're not. So Calvin Johnson's going to get the nod that time. For me, I'm going to go with, I've mentioned Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Calvin Johnson for sure, so that's 3. I had a hard time with Jared Allen because he bounced around so much, but the dude was a killer defender, so he got the nod from me. So that's 4 right there, the 4 first ballot guys. I went with Zach Thomas, Miami Dolphin linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
I went with Fred Taylor and Tony Baselli. Now, Tony Baselli, most of you are like, who the hell is that? Dude was vicious offensive lineman, one of the best ever. He was also the Houston Texans' first ever player. He was the guy that was taken in the their expansion
Mhm.
draft. But the dude was a Hall of Famer then. Why he hasn't gotten in, I don't know. Maybe I don't know much. And he may be one of the. That was the one. It was between him and Darren Woodson, and I'm a Cowboy through and through.
Yeah.
And Darren Woodson is a Hall of really, really fucking good, you know. But is he a Hall of Famer? I don't know. I mean, you can only have so many spots. But Baselli was, to me, he deserves it because you know he was just a badass. He was a badass in Jacksonville and badass in Houston. Of course, he didn't play much in Houston. He retired not long after because he was fucking old when they drafted him then.
Yeah.
Fred Taylor's kind of a sneaky one. You know, he's a all-purpose back.
Fred Taylor didn't get it from me because he had there were about 4 years there where he was just dominant. But then the rest of his career, he was just.
Well, playing in Jacksonville's hard.
Yeah, he was just he was a really good back, but not like the longevity wasn't there.
I mean, you look at
for me.
Look at what he had though. I mean, he had a mediocre quarterback to start with, and he got Mark Brunell, who was not an all-time great, but better than
more than competent.
Yeah, anything that he's ever had, and so moves on, and of course by the time he makes it to New England, I mean he's out of gas. But I think that's more of a respect vote for me.
Yeah.
But Hines Ward is an interesting one. I mean, he's hard. He's hard. Reggie Wayne was hard. I thought Torrey Holt should have been in, before Isaac Bruce.
Yeah.
That was just but whoever's making that vote.
I went with Ward over. I didn't consider Reggie Wayne really, not yet, but over Harrison and Holt, because Harrison and Holt both played on prolific passing offenses. Like they have a lot of gaudy stats because that's what their teams did. And so Hines Ward was the guy on the Steelers for.
Well, the thing about Hines Ward though, he wasn't afraid to throw a block. He'd knock a motherfucker's head off.
Yeah.
Torrey Holt ain't doing that. Torrey Holt is the speedster down the field.
Yeah.
Hines Ward was the guy that went across the middle. That I'm going to throw the ball to this dude. I know he's going to catch it, and I know he's not afraid to take a hit.
Yeah.
And I know that because some of the receivers that he played with, Santonio Holmes or even Plexico Burris or those dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Those dudes knew if they got out in the flat, Hines had their back. Hines would hit a linebacker in the mouth, and he didn't care.
Yeah.
And another one that I had a hard time not picking was Patrick Willis. I mean, that dude, linebacker for the 49ers, was a fucking monster. He's still got time. You look at some of those dudes, they've still got plenty of time. There's some of them I don't see how made it. Like Clay Matthews Jr. I don't see how. I mean, I guess they have to have 25.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have him in there. John Lynch is an interesting one. The dude was really good safety.
Yeah. I like the John Lynch pick, but I don't think he'll make it in.
No, I don't either.
Same with Rondé Barber. I like Rondé Barber, but I don't think he'll make it in.
Yeah, he's highly questionable. So, with any luck, I mean, Richard Seymour, I don't see him ever making it. I don't see Tasker.
No, Richard Seymour's that guy that he was a really good player, and he's got 3 or 4 just excellent highlight plays that everybody remembers, but he gets tied to those, so I think he gets kind of that rose-colored glasses deal because he's got those 3 or 4 plays with the Patriots.
And being a Patriot.
Yeah, that just kind of elevates what people remember him actually being.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't see that. Darren Woodson's so iffy. I mean, I don't think there's enough love out there, but maybe.
I think he'll make it.
I mean, so we can agree that there's 4 dudes on this list that are 1,000% getting it.
Yeah. I think the first times are all first ballot guys. In my opinion,
there's no question.
The one that I agree that the one that would be iffy if they feel bad about putting all 4 of the first guys in
would be Jared
Allen, and I think that's bullshit just because of how dominant a player he was. I mean, I know he bounced around a little bit, but he was the scariest guy on whatever defense he was on.
But I mean, realistically, there's 3
that
are 1,000% just go burn the Hall of Fame down if they don't get in. I mean, especially Peyton Manning. I mean, he's likely. I don't know if football's ever had a unanimous guy because they don't. I don't keep up with the voting like you do in baseball, but if there's a 1,000% dude, that's him. I mean, him, Brady, Montana, Marino, those type guys.
Yeah. He's a top. I'll be generous and say he's a top 5 quarterback all time. To me, he's a top 3.
Easily.
But you can make an argument, and put him in the top 5 quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah.
But the only thing you can really count against him is just number of Super Bowl wins.
Well,
I mean, he set every other record, or won every other game, and he has 2 Super Bowl wins.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's not even hurting there really.
No, because I mean, what's the benchmark really is 1.
Yeah, I mean, really, once you win it, your reputation's like always a Super Bowl winner.
Exactly.
So
and that's a title that you always carry.
Yeah.
But then you've got the gaudy stats that he carries around.
Yeah.
And when he first came into the league,
the respect in the league for him is like,
yeah.
I mean, even the people that don't like him are like, he's the smartest quarterback I've ever
yeah.
against.
And the thing about it, when that dude came into the league, I thought, man, there's your bust.
Mm-hmm.
You look at that draft, and you're like, man, I was in the Ryan Leaf camp. I thought, man, Ryan Leaf was the better quarterback. Because Payton Manning couldn't win the big one in college.
What was I watching the other day? I watched Draft Day.
Yeah. The
other day. That's at a school, and I just needed a movie to watch, and so I watched it. And there's a scene in there where they're talking about like the guy that's supposed to be the number 1 pick in the draft in the movie.
Yeah.
Is
that quarterback?
Is a quarterback, and so of course there's they start to, is he going to be a boomer or bust? And when the bust conversation comes up, they're talking about Ryan Leaf, and Jennifer Gardner plays like the salary cap draft analyst person in the movie.
Yeah.
And she brings up a really good point in it. She's like, she points out Ryan Leaf was way more physically gifted than Payton Manning. He just wasn't mature enough, and he even admits that now. I went and looked it up. He even admits that now. He talks about the reason he didn't succeed in the league was he was just not. He'd always been the best at everything.
Yeah.
He'd always had everything handed to him, and then when those struggles hit, and when the names started flying about bust and stuff like that, he said, I just wasn't mature enough to handle it and just crashed.
Yeah.
And so, Peyton Manning's mentality has to take into account much more than his physical abilities.
Well, it's also funny if you hear them. I don't know if you've ever heard the story, but they will go and they talk to Dolan, I think is the guy's name, the general manager, owner guy of the Colts at the time. He had, during the interview with Peyton Manning, they were sitting across from him, not unlike we are right now. He, they asked Peyton something, and Peyton goes, you know what, if you don't draft me, I'm going to make it a point that every time I come in this building to stomp y'all's asses.
Mm.
He said, I don't care if I win another game. And he was just that guy.
Yeah.
And
which is funny because you see him in the commercials and and just in the interviews and stuff like that now. He's like this just real nice, kind of personable.
He has a switch.
But yeah, he's got that.
He has a switch. When he gets on the field, there's no.
Well, they were talking about it the other day because they were promoting his. He got a show on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, Peyton's Places.
No, it's the other one where he goes like in depth into like a play.
Oh yeah, where he breaks that.
Yeah, he breaks it down and stuff like that. And they were talking about that one, and they were talking about how. Like it was the best football show on any kind of media and stuff, just because of how smart he was. And they said the reason he's this way is his entire life was football. Mm-hmm. Like they said, when he showed up at Tennessee as a freshman, he knew how to cook his own food. And apparently, there's a story that he put a can of beans in a microwave to cook it.
Yeah.
And like just opened the can up, put it in the microwave, and cooked it because he didn't know you couldn't put metal cans in a microwave.
Yeah.
And then his wife laid his clothes out until he was like 32.
Yeah.
Because he was just so consumed with football, he didn't know how to do anything else.
Well, I mean,
so
as robotic as he is when it comes to game preparation, and gameplay, and he's one of the few guys that could be a Hall of Famer, that is a Hall of Famer, that could easily manage and coach a team. I think. Yeah. Because he genuinely.
I don't think he could coach. I think he can manage and like GM it.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. He'd be a great front office guy.
But I don't think he could coach a team because he'd be like, well, fucker, why can't you do this?
Yeah.
Like I can see it right there. Why can't you? Like I think he'd get frustrated real quick.
That's highly possible. But I mean, what I'm saying though, he's probably the X's and O's guy.
He is, to me, his job would be like, and I think the job that he might take would be like a draft analyst guy. Yeah. Like the Colts hire him. Hey, you're going to run our draft. Break down all the players and let us know who to pick.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's uncommon to see a guy that knows his craft as well as that dude. Even like being a quarterback coach or a quarterback analyst or something, that because if you see clips of that show that you were talking about, it's incredible. Yeah. I mean, the dude really breaks that shit down, and he, they talk about Tony Romo this, Tony Romo that. Like, you see Tony Romo on CBS Sports. Yeah. You put Peyton Manning up there. Yeah. Peyton Manning can tell you what they're doing, 2 hours before the game kicks off, because I mean he he's just that smart.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's the shining star of that class. And what's sad is likely not going to have a induction ceremony until probably the next year. So they're going to have 3 classes. Same thing with the baseball class.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one for me was tougher than the baseball one. I think the baseball list was pretty well cut and dried.
Man, so I'll be honest. Like I am I mean, you know me. Like I like watching baseball. I like kids. I like youth baseball. I like watching the Rangers. But I'm not really a stats guy when it comes to players. You know.
Yeah,
and so I get to look at this list, and the first list I made, I realized was just a bunch of dudes whose names I knew.
Yeah.
You know, like it was just that guy. Yeah, he was really good. That guy. Oh yeah. And so I had to like delete that picture and add it back, and like sit down and actually think, okay, this guy's not going to make it because of, you know, PEDs or you know, and stuff like that. Which I've got 2 or 3 guys on my list that are, you know, not going to make it because of PEDs, but I feel like they should get in. So
all right, so I'll read the list. This is the ballot. Like this is 100% the ballot that the writers are choosing from, and it's in alphabetical order. No surprises here. So Bobby Abreu, Barry Bonds, Mark Burley, A.J. Burnett, Roger Clemens, Michael Kadire, Dan Herron, LaTroy Hawkins, Todd Helton, Tim Hudson, Torrey Hunter, Andrew Jones, Jeff Kent, Andy Pettit, Ramos Ramirez, Manny Ramirez, Scott Rowland, Kurt Schilling, Gary Sheffield, Sammy Sosa, Nick Swisher, Shane Victorino, Omar Vizquel, Billy Wagner, and Barry Zito. So, some pretty recognizable names on there for lots of different reasons. So, go ahead and give me your... Now, there will be... I'm not saying that there's going to be 6 inducted. If you're a sports writer, you get to choose 6 names off this list to vote for.
Oh, is it 6? I picked 5.
You can pick...
So,
you can pick 1. It doesn't matter. None.
Okay.
A lot of them don't vote for any of them.
I picked 5 guys, and there's probably 3 or 4 that I'd have to sit here and argue with myself to pick a 5th or a 6th guy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So my 5, and like I said, most of these aren't making it because of reputations. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Jeff Kent, Manny Ramirez, and Sammy Sosa.
Ooh, okay.
And so, and like I said, you know, I struggle with baseball stats. So a lot of these older guys, like I don't know who they are.
Okay.
And I'd have to do a lot of research.
I went with 7.
Okay.
Or, yeah, 6. 6, I'm sorry. You get to pick 6. I went with Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Todd Helton. That's 3. And then we slide over to the other side of the ballot. I go with Manny, 4. Sammy Sosa, 5. This is where it got sketchy. There's so many dudes on here that deserve a shot. I went with Omar Vizquel. As my 6th man. Now, people are going to say, why not Kurt Schilling or Gary Sheffield? Well, trust me, I argued a lot with myself about that. To me, let's start with Bonds. We both went with Bonds. Bonds was a first ballot Hall of Famer before any discussion. And I put Clemens in that same bracket. That dude was a monster.
They were guys that started using towards the end of their careers to overcome injuries. Yeah. Like if they'd have retired when they got injured, they'd have been first ballot Hall of Famers.
No question. And Bonds was the first ballot Hall of Famer before he left Pittsburgh.
Yes.
As was Clemens before he left Boston. You know, that was...
Yeah. If they had retired at that point,
they would have been
they'd have been on 10 years ago, we'd never had this conversation.
Yeah, no, there would have been no question there. And what's shitty is the writers, I think the writers are eventually going to vote him in. I think they're going to make them sweat it out.
Yeah.
And then their last year of eligibility on the ballot, I think they might get in.
Yeah.
Now, they've been gaining steam going up from there, but, you know, it's like... I don't know that I can live in a world where the home run king and the hit king are not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's just... Yeah. That's where we're headed.
Yeah.
And then also Roger Clemens, who's won more Cy Youngs than literally anybody alive. He's won 7. And he stretched that out over, 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude was as dominant a pitcher in his time as there ever was. I don't care what kind of drugs you accuse him of using. The dude was legit. There still had to be some things there. And he was a bit of an asshole. I get it.
Yeah.
But come on. The dude, there's no question, the guy was a monster. So those 2 for me should have been in a long time ago. All right, well, you went with Jeff Kent.
Yeah.
Second baseman. Interesting.
If I was picking 6, though, my 3 that I was talking about that I'd have to argue would be Helton, Andrew Jones, or Omar Vasquez. Like, it'd be one of those 3. I'd have to argue with myself.
Andrew Jones.
I like Andrew Jones for defense. Like,
well, that's the reason I picked Vizquel.
Yeah.
Vizquel has 13 Gold Gloves.
Yeah.
At shortstop. I mean, it ain't like he's getting them at pitcher.
Yeah.
Shortstop is legit. Is a legit fielding. He wasn't great offensively, but he was good enough to make rosters.
Mm-hmm.
He did bounce around a lot. Andrew Jones is probably one of the better. But you got to look at Torrey Hunter too. Torrey Hunter was a badass center.
Yeah, but so I didn't pick Torrey Hunter. It's his first year on the ballot.
Yeah, so he's got time.
And I don't think he's not a first ballot guy. In my mind.
No.
And
Neither's Tim Hudson.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any of those.
Yeah, Mark Burley, he's not a first ballot. Nick Swisher, I don't think Nick Swisher will ever get in.
Nick Swisher won't make it off the ballot. He'll be gone 1 vote. I think Shane Victorino's gone first vote. Zito's questionable. He's a Cy Young winner. He might make a second round.
Yeah.
Aramis Ramirez won't make it back. Tim Hudson's questionable. LaTroy Hawkins will not make it back on the ballot.
Yeah.
Kadire, not a chance. Burley maybe. AJ Burnett is kind of questionable. I wouldn't think that he's going to make it back. I think that one was just he just had the time in. And what amazes me is, Kadire even getting any consideration. But, he's got the time in, so that's how.
As I say, I think everybody gets put on the ballot the first time.
Yeah.
That meets certain requirements.
But, yeah, the ones I struggled with the most was Kurt Schilling and Gary Sheffield.
Yeah.
Gary Sheffield's a 500 home run guy. Barely, like 503. Still, 500's 500. Kurt Schilling, people give him a lot of love, and he's the leader in the clubhouse with votes. I think he was right at the cutoff. I think he was like 4 votes shy last year, so it's likely he's going to get in this year. But Kurt Schilling, to me, he was never the best pitcher on his own fucking team.
Yeah.
Because before he went to Arizona, you never heard of Kurt Schilling. Like, he played in Baltimore. He was just a guy. And then when he got some help,
yeah.
he's a kick-ass Robin. Same thing when in Boston. Pedro was there.
Yep.
Beckett was there.
Yeah, he was a great second ace.
Yeah, he was number 2 guy.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he did some great things, big playoff moments, but in that World Series in 2001 that the Diamondbacks won with him and Randy Johnson, he's a World Series MVP, but he never, like I said, he was never the best pitcher on his own fucking team.
Yeah.
Much less the best pitcher in the league, because he never won a Cy Young. So that's kind of disqualifying for me. But he's going to get a lot of love just because of the whole Boston thing.
Yeah.
Sheffield is under the steroid cloud.
Yeah, and he's heavily under it, like most of his career, possibly.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Same thing with Sammy Sosa.
Yeah.
But, Sosa and McGuire, for me, are unquestionable Hall of Famers because of what they did for the game. They basically gave Major League Baseball CPR.
Yeah.
Because after the strike, it was over.
And that's what puts him over for me on it is the not just
missing off that list. So McGuire got voted off the ballot.
Yep.
So how Sosa's still on there? I guess because Sosa's got 600 home runs.
Sosa did it for a lot longer than McGuire.
Well,
I feel like.
He's got 600 home runs too. So, but McGuire still got 500, and that used to be your benchmark.
Yeah.
500 and 3,000, you were in.
Yeah.
Now, you got the 42-56 ain't in there, and 763 likely not to be in there for a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, and also Sheffield didn't really have the star power. He wasn't like ever a superstar.
Yeah.
And he was always. It seemed like there was always like some kind of scandal with him. Like he was always in trouble with something.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically kind of just a pariah out there. A great player, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But Hall of Fame material, I don't know.
Yeah.
And Jeff Kent was a struggle for me too. He was a 98 National League MVP with the Giants.
Yeah. I just like Jeff Kent. Like I'm just kind of hoping he gets in.
Well, he's one of the gritty, dirty dudes. He's just what you expect from an everyday ball player. I mean, the guy probably sounds like fireworks when he walks. Because he's played the game hard. We mentioned Todd Helton. I like Todd Helton. The dude was an everyday player. He's not a 500 home run guy. He's not a 3,000 hit guy, but he was the Colorado Rockies. he carried that franchise the whole time he was there.
Mm.
So it's fitting that he should get in.
Yeah. And he has a consistently extremely good stat line.
Yeah.
He's never a guy that's going to win the MVP or
No.
anything like that, but he's, top 5 at his position every season.
But when you're the guy dragging
Mm-hmm.
the
And you're the
franchise
only guy
behind
on
you.
the franchise that adds to it.
Yeah, I mean, and because by the time Matt Holliday, he got there kind of Larry Walker time, Dante Bichette, but they were old.
Mm-hmm.
He came in, he was homegrown.
Yeah.
Came from Tennessee.
Well, he's the Rockies version of Michael Young.
Yeah, he is Mr. Consistency.
Yeah.
And, we talk about Michael Young. It's a shame his name is not on that list.
Yeah.
He got voted off the ballot last year. He got 1% of the vote. I'm like, how in the shit does that guy not get some consideration?
Yeah.
I mean, he took a piss poor team, threw them on his back for years and years and years, drug them. That's the Todd Helton. I mean, he took a shit team and drugged them. Sadly, the guys around him are going to get more notoriety than he will. With Helton, it's going to be Matt Holliday, and with Michael Young, it's going to be A-Rod and guys like that.
Yeah.
They're going to steal the spotlight.
Yeah, the names are going to be better than the players.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know. That's one of the biggest things in the world is a Hall of Fame debate. It's like, are you worthy? And I always hate the way the baseball does it, the writers.
Yeah.
Because if you get a grudge, dude will hold a grudge forever.
Yeah.
At least they're kind of starting to clean that up, making dudes vote and shit like that. Because there were several writers out there that if it was your first year on the ballot, they're not voting for you.
Yeah.
Just out of principle, because their logic was if Babe Ruth was a unanimous Hall of Famer, no one was.
Yeah.
Like, well, the writers voted for him. Babe Ruth, I guarantee you, was a major league dickhead, as was Ty Cobb.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you those because they were the biggest fucking thing in the world forever.
Yeah. I think a lot of that bullshit would stop if they published the ballots.
Well,
show who's voting for who, how they're voting.
The legit writers will. Once the voting is over.
Yeah.
Kalashaw did. Or I don't think he votes anymore. Who was another one that does? Jason Stark is real good about it. Tim Kirkson's real good about it.
Yeah.
They say they put their money where their mouth is, and they took a lot of shit for voting for Bonds and Clemens all these years. But they're legit baseball men. They understand. They're like, hey man, this is where we're at.
And my deal with the steroid era is that we still don't know who all was using, so we're probably voting in guys that we're using.
Oh, we already have.
And pitchers and hitters and players were using.
So it's kind of a level playing field.
Yes, I mean, everybody's using, so everybody's using.
Here's my deal. We are the poster child for this on that ballot is going to be Manny Ramirez.
Mm-hmm.
Manny Ramirez is the only one on that list that tested positive, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only one, and he did it very, very late in his career. He did it with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
All right. Another to me is the poster child for the steroid era is Rafael Palmeiro. The dude, he stood in front of Congress and all this other bullshit. Wasn't, a month later he popped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to me, it's retroactive. So if you, or not non-retroactive. So if steroids get banned today, and I've been using them every day but up to today and have never tested positive, okay, what's wrong?
Yeah.
That's the boat that Clemens, Bonds are in, And here's my question, and this is legit. David Ortiz is one of the most beloved players of all time.
Mm-hmm.
He popped.
Yeah.
What's going to happen when he gets on the ballot? He's going to go in, no question.
Yeah, and I think that's what it'll be. A player like him is who's going to trigger the floodgates on these other guys getting, because then they won't have that excuse not to do it anymore.
Well,
You know what I mean?
Supposedly his test was anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
but it came out that it was him. He never served a suspension for it like Ramirez did.
Yeah.
But if you served a suspension for it, I can get them holding it against you. But if you were just suspected, it's obvious that Bonds probably did, because he gained 1,000 pounds of muscle. The bat looked like a toothpick in his hand. His hat size went
grew a half.
Well, it went from 7.5 to 8
Mm-hmm.
in 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no doubt there's something going on there, but he never tested positive.
Mm-hmm.
We're done. You know, there's no proof.
Yeah.
I mean, you can suspect all you want. Well, you know, I suspect he fucked around with Jimmy Hoffa. I can't prove it.
Yeah.
So fuck him. You know, that's basically the mentality that these dudes are going off of. And I think Sheffield is in that bag.
Yeah.
Jeff Bagwell was in that same tote. You know, it's suspected, never confirmed. But
Yeah.
you got your confirmed guys, which would be A-Rod, your David Ortiz's,
and both those will get in when they're on.
and Rafael Palmeiro got voted off. And that dude was a 500 and 3,000 hitter. But if he wouldn't have made a spectacle of himself in front of Congress, I think that would have. I think he's a golden era guy. He's going to get voted in later by the players because they're going to be more forgiving. And I think McGuire is the same way. I hope.
Yeah.
But as far as the riders go, you're right. The dipstick is going to be David Ortiz and possibly A-Rod.
Yeah.
Whatever happens there, because, like I said, I think more Ortiz than A-Rod because Ortiz is universally loved.
No, I agree. But if Ortiz gets in, I think you can't justify keeping A-Rod out.
Well, and you can't justify keeping any of those dudes out.
But that's what I was going to say. And then the minute you can't justify keeping A-Rod out, you can't with Sosa, Bonds, or Clemens, or any of those other guys.
Because they never pop.
Because he's equally... Yeah,
he's just as guilty.
And he's equally kind of unliked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of, among players, there's not a lot of A-Rod fans.
Oh, among everybody, there's not a lot of A-Rod fans except A-Rod.
Yeah,
and so... did you ever see that documentary on him on Netflix? I forget what it's called. You need to check it out. It's played by kids.
Okay.
It's 12, 13-year-old kids playing the characters, but it's the stories told by the dudes that lived it.
Mm-hmm.
The Balco Bay Area Lab Company guys.
Yeah.
Okay. All of it is basically this dude that Tony, I forget his last name. Anyway, he was a huge name there in the steroid thing for a while because he had a list of clients a mile long, and A-Rod was at the top. You know, Ryan Braun got caught up in that.
Yeah.
Several others. I think Bonds was sniffed around, mentioned, what have you. But anyway, that documentary really lays out what kind of shithead A-Rod is. Because, I mean, A-Rod went as hard as he could to fight it all and still, you know, in the end, tested positive and had to, you know, he had that crying interview with Katie Couric and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
That's what killed A-Rod. You know, if he would have just come out and said, fuck yeah, dude, I did it, I think it wouldn't have been as telling. You know, it would have been like, all right, yeah, okay. You know, you can't like, well, hold your voting in hostages now, you know. So, I mean, I think if he and Palmeiro both, I think if they would have been honest, I think things would have been a lot different for them. But, you know, fighting at line and being a dickhead.
Yeah.
You know, that's where that comes down to it. So, anyway, that's the Baseball Hall of Fame and Football Hall of Fame discussions. If y'all want to, listening out there, drop your comments, likes, whatever on that, because we're just two guys. We don't know shit. So
this is true.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, y'all take it easy. You know where to find us. All your favorite podcast places. I know this was a short one, but oh well. They can't all be zingers. Y'all take it easy.